Welcome to another episode of the Wild Strength Podcast. Today, my guest is Kenneth Thrall, and his walk-up song is "The Red" by Chevelle. I feel like I got a fast forward. There we go.
There we go.
I've definitely been on I found a playlist. So the other day on my Instagram, I was just asking for like random like workout playlists because I'm someone who will listen to the same one over and over and over again until I'm just completely tired of it. And
Yeah.
someone sent me, what was the playlist called? I think it was called like Divorced Dad Rock or something. And it's like
Yes.
Creed, Chevelle. Best
Yep.
playlist ever.
Yeah. There's
So
another one. I'm not sure how he sent this to me. I think it was Roy, but it's called Butt Rock Bangers. Yeah. So if you look that up, Butt Rock Bangers, that's actually a pretty good playlist too. But
I'm
kind of, yeah,
writing that down as we speak.
yep, similar to the divorced dad vibe, but
That is hilarious. Well, cool. Like I said, we have Kenny or Kenneth on here. I'll let him introduce himself, tell a little bit about who he is, what he does, and we'll see where the conversation goes.
yeah. So Kenneth, I work for Kifaru International. Been here almost three years now. So kind of just the Swiss Army knife of Kifaru. I do a lot of different stuff within um, really every department. Anything that needs help, I'll help out with. So kind of keeps me busy for sure. Constantly going one way or another. But no, it's been great. Yeah, so almost 3 years now. It'd actually be January 31st. Will be 3 years ago when I bought my house here in Riverton. So yeah, it's coming up.
Nice. That's exciting. Yeah, I met Kenny last year, I guess, at the Western Hunt Fest.
Yep.
And I was kind of thinking about this before we hopped on a little bit earlier today. I feel like you're someone that, like, maybe a bunch of people aren't like, oh, this guy's a really big, like, hunter that I want to follow, like, a big influencer, which I think is really good because I feel like just those people are a different world of people, we'll say. But,
Yeah.
like, by no means, like, he's a freaking killer. And, like, you just see what he does throughout the season and all the critters that he puts down and like helps people put down, I think is really cool. So I will start with saying, if you're not following along with his journey, I think definitely a real person that you could follow along with and not someone who
Yeah.
goes on all these like big guided paid hunts.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool and like something I respect a lot about you.
Yeah. And that's something I obviously like getting into the industry or anything like that. I've never really been on like social media a whole lot. Just in general, like there was 3 years where I didn't have Instagram or nothing at all before
Mm-hmm.
working for Kafaru. So like it's kind of my personality too, is I'm not going to fluff anything or put stuff down your throat. The amount of content that I do have on my phone I could share every single day of different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just going to give you the real, just like this animal, this animal, this animal. Like it's just kind of, each season in the fall, it's when I jam pack most of my posts and then kind of just go through, random ones or, I kind of update my story a little bit. Probably
Mm-hmm.
not as much as I should, but yeah, I'm not going to be different than the way I am and everything too. I love to hunt, and you could tell that through my Instagram. It's just really hunting. Um, but no, yeah, I appreciate that. Have built my whole life around hunting. So, definitely a lot of years since I was, 6 years old, following my brothers around till now. I've experienced a lot in those, till I'm 27 now. So, no, it's been a fun trip for sure, especially the last, I'd say 5 years being really proficient, um, or even a little bit longer. But no, it's been fun.
Yeah, and I think I agree. Like, I'm not a big fan of social media, and I started a podcast, and everyone is like, "Oh, like you have to do this to grow your podcast and do that to grow your podcast," and I'm like, "What do you mean I have to do these things?" And I don't do them anyway. So
Yeah.
like the amount of effort I put into like I haven't posted a podcast in like 6 or 7 weeks because it's just
You're
like
telling me.
I just wanted to like not do it for a little bit and like the freedom
Hmm.
to be able to not do it and like not do what people want sometimes is really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so before, and I think maybe we've even talked about this, but before you were with Kafaru, were you kind of in the industry before that, or were you just kind of hunting and hoping to get into it?
So that's the thing is and this is like going to be tips too for people out there that want to get in the industry or anything like that. is I went into this and coming to Kifaru, I had no ambition of becoming anything in the industry.
Mm,
Not at all. So the backstory, I am born and raised in Western Oregon on the coast, hunting through my life and stuff. But then I moved to Wyoming right out of high school and lived there for 2.5 years in the Star Valley and loved it. That's where I really I'm diving into this completely.
mm,
And that's just going to be my life. And but it's nothing more than just it like resonate with me more like a challenge. Like, coming out of high school, you played in sports your whole freaking life and you're kind of motivated and stuff by that. Like, I'm still hunting obviously, but you can lose that after going out. So I'm just hunting constantly anywhere I can get it. Even, I moved back to Oregon after 2.5 years in Western Wyoming. Moved back to Oregon because I couldn't afford to live in the Star Valley, and my whole goal was I'm going to build up money and I'm going to move back to Wyoming, just completely. And some 3 years around there back in Oregon, and I've been hunting in Idaho, like different states, just kind of on my own, just having a regular 9 to 5, and
mm,
whenever time I could take off. Um, and even then, when I was in Oregon, I was pretty reclusive. Like, I didn't have any social media. I would get off of work, I'd go scout for elk, and just like
mm,
trying to naturally build up a way to become consistent within myself. Just, I want to kill an elk every year. I want to kill a deer every year. Like, I want to be very consistent. And really dove into it, but I wanted to get back to Wyoming. So I saw, I'm a Kifaru customer, how their packs love it and love the brand, love the people here, or at least, perception like coming in, you're like, this is a great company. And
mm,
um, I saw that they were moving to Riverton, and I saw it as a good opportunity. I was actually on an elk hunt in Idaho, backpacked into, way into the backcountry, and sitting there, it's snowing. I'm at the top of the mountain watching this bull. It was 2 days before season, watching this bull. And like right then and there, I'm like, I am definitely doing this. Like, I'm gonna buy a house in Wyoming, and I'm gonna go
mm.
work for Kifaru. My only perception of working Kifaru is I don't care. I'll sweep floors. I'll do anything and just be there. And so after that hunt, I ended up killing that bull 2 days later on opening day, and then packed it out by myself and just loving it the whole time. I'm like, I need to be in the big mountains. I need to be in the western Rocky Mountains. And as soon as I got back, I looked at houses, hit up a realtor, and I actually bought. Well, I got back and also was talking with Kafaru. Um, and telling them I'm like, hey, like, I'm gonna move to Riverton and I want to get a job with you guys, right? And
Mhm.
they're like, yeah, there's gonna be job openings and anything like that. So like, if you do it, like, there's a good chance you get a job. And then I messaged them back later because I bought a house. I was like, hey, like, FYI, and by the way, this house I bought, I did not step foot in whatsoever before I bought it. I saw it
Love
on Zillow. I called the realtor, say, hey, I told her, I was like, hey, FaceTime me, walk through the house. I grew up with and worked in professions of like building houses, so I know what to look for and everything. And she's going through it, and I'm like, put in an offer right now. Like, so I put in an offer, got it, and got a crazy deal. But told them, I'm like, hey, like, I bought a house, like, I'm doing this, I want to get a job with you guys. And after that, they're kind of like, okay, like, you're gonna work for us. And I ended up coming out here a little earlier to Riverton. There's kind of an in between. I bought my house January 31st. They weren't coming till June. um, but I came and I met, signed in my house and everything, and then went and met at the office in Denver. And that's when they're like, hey, what did you do before? Because we're not going to be there till June. Like, you can maybe get some side jobs and stuff like that. And I was like, building houses, framing, and stuff like that. And they're like, well, do you want to work on the building, like the Kafaro building, before we get up there, and work with the contractor? So I got that next 2 days later. I was working on the building in Riverton, in like the office I'm sitting in right now, put in all the studs, like framing and stuff, and which is surreal. Like, you kind of built within like we literally
Yeah.
demolished the whole inside and then built it up to what it is now, um, which is just crazy. But yeah, so I just wanted, and I grew up on a farm and everything like that, so like working hard and everything is kind of built into us. So it's
Mhm.
nothing second nature to me, and also just having a perspective of like I didn't know I was going to get a job with Kifaru. Like, I knew I was going to live in Wyoming, and if it failed with Kifaru, it's not the end of the world. And that's kind
Mhm.
of been my family, like all of our whole.
Mhm.
mindsets in a way. Like if you're still alive, you're still living. You know what I mean? So like if
Mhm.
bad things are gonna happen, if it happens, but go into it. Like I went into this believing ever the whole time. I'm like, I'm gonna get a job with Kifaru, and this is all gonna work. Um, and then, but I didn't go in with the mindset of like I'm gonna be doing the stuff I'm doing with Kifaru now. You know.
Mhm.
So I think if you go in with a genuine just wanting to be there and work hard mindset, you're going to succeed way harder than being the guy that's like, I want to become the 100,000 follower guy. I want to become Remy Warren. I want to become, Aaron Snyder or all these guys.
Mhm.
Um, your mindset's going to be wrong because then that's going to build ego, you know, and you see it, I see it. The amount of ego in this industry is
Disgusting.
astronomical. It is disgusting. And but if you go in just being a genuine human, then you're going to more succeed and also have a way happier time because you're going to meet cool people, like you and everyone, like different companies.
Mhm.
And instead of coming in like you're like this is me, like I want to be the hot shit. Like no one's the hot shit. That's the thing. Everybody's a human. Everybody hunts. Like it is what it is.
Heck yeah.
Um, but no, it all worked out and like coming here and working and just kind of worked my way up. I worked, anything that's asked, I will do. Um, and just working hard, and that's what got me here. And I love Kafaro. I love the company, and it's still here. So, yeah.
Heck yeah, I respect the hell out of that. I feel like so many people, and I agree entirely with everything that you said. Like, I've had, and even I don't consider myself anybody, right? Like, I do this podcast for me and because it's fun and because I like to have fun conversations. Like, I have no intent of like it being big or being an influencer or whatever. And I've like had a handful of people who are like, hey, like, how I don't know, say for example, I got a free piece of gear from X company.
Hmm.
And they're like, oh, well, how'd you get that? And I'm like, well, I literally just was at TAC and I struck a conversation with a person at the booth and they were like,
Yep.
here, you know what, try this out. And they're like, okay, well, how can I get it? And I'm like, I didn't ask for it. Like you don't go asking for things. Anything that
No.
I have gotten so far and anything that has come to me has been, and like you say this humbly and I say this humbly, has been because like I just struck up a conversation with someone and we
Yep.
got to talking and I didn't ask for anything. I didn't tell them my intent. I never had any plan in mind. There was no like MO behind it. It was just like, hey, you seem like a really cool person to know. You seem like you, for me, it's like I'm still relatively new to it. So I kind of, any conversation I have with anyone is like, I want to soak up all the knowledge, all the education that I can. And
Yep.
like, people appreciate that. Like, oh, you want to learn from me? Like, I have something I can teach you. How can I help you more? And I just think when you go into anything, not even just the hunting industry, when you go into anything with the mindset of like, not that it has to happen because like you said your mindset was like this is going to work out for me and I think that's really good, but if you just feel like you deserve it and you feel like it has to happen for you, then most likely it's really not. And there
No.
are, unfortunately, there are a few that it does happen for when that's the case.
Yeah.
And those are the people that just end up being the wrong people, but they're, you know what, they're big names anyways.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that's super cool and like humble of you to just be like, you know what, I'm gonna move there. Who cares what happens? Who cares if I'm sweeping floors? I know this is where I want to be. I know this is a company I want to work for, and I don't think a lot of people are willing to do that. Like to leave whatever security that you had to go to something else when you had no freaking clue what was gonna happen. Like that's just not
Hmm.
common that people are willing to take those steps.
No, it's definitely not. And I get like circumstances like, I was just a single dude, just, could do that kind of thing. But
Right, right.
even then, like even just speaking to younger guys that like I talk to a lot that are like, hey, like how do you get into the industry and like all this stuff? And I'll tell them the same thing like I just said there. Um, go within the mindset of that you're there to work. Like you're not going to be there and just coast your way into anything. You're going to have to show them and that company that your value into the company is important,
Exactly.
and build importancy. Don't go into the mindset of like I'm gonna go in there and I'm just gonna be the face of a
Mhm.
company. First of all, being the face of a company, like it's not a good thing. No,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
no, you just like if anything, if you wish well love to hunt and you want to hunt, probably not go into the industry. Just have fun and just go hunt. And
Mhm.
that's the thing. Like if everything shut off tomorrow, like even if Instagram just boom, like it's TikTok, whatever, they just cancel it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I don't care. I'm literally going to be doing the same thing I do
Mhm.
every single year, and that's going to be going hunting in different states, hunting in my own state as much as I can.
Mhm.
Just love your passion and the passion will carry you through the industry in a way too. If you're actually passionate about hunting and conservation and everything like that, and just the ability of the outdoors, then it's going to coast. But no, you have to show value and everything like that. And that's the thing, like you said, like coming in with expectations of I deserve this. No one deserves anything,
I
you
couldn't
know.
agree more. Yeah.
Yeah, no one deserves anything at all. And that's the thing, like within, getting free stuff or stuff like that, like you, I have never asked for anything.
Mm-mm.
Never.
I feel so
Like,
gross. I hate
yeah,
it.
I can't. Like, I go into a conversation with someone too, and you should have that money in your bank and go within the conversation that you're going to buy that from them. If you
Yep.
want it, go within the conversation that you're going to buy that from them.
Hmm.
And like, I do, like, be like, hey, like, I'm going to purchase this. And then, after conversation, if they're being like, hey, like, we'll just send it to you and stuff like that, like, that is what it is. Even if they say, like, hey, you know, like maybe we'll give you like 10% or like stuff like that. I'll be like, all right, like I don't care. I'll pay full price because I want to try this product out or I know this product's going to be good. Um, just go within. No one deserves anything. You don't deserve anything. I know I don't deserve anything. Like just work hard and show your value.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And I think also like a lot of people go into things thinking like that they're going to get big right away. And I think you got to play the long man's game with anything. Like you said, you have and still probably no aspiration to be like someone that people are looking up to, but you are just one of those who puts their heads down, you grind it out, and you kill things, and slowly more and more I imagine you get a bigger following, and people are seeing that, like you're being on more podcasts, and which I think is super cool. But like you said, that's never been your desire to do that, right? That's just because you've
Never.
put your head down and you've done the work. And I think and coaching, like my background in strength and conditioning and coaching, it's the same way. Like if you're a coach who shows up and you try to post on social media and show everyone that you know everything and you're the best coach out there, like oftentimes people don't like you, people don't want to work with you. But if you
Hmm.
just put your head down, if you just work, if you and then you have athletes who come through and they're like, oh shit, like this coach knows what they're doing, like they really got me prepared. Then you have
Hmm.
more and more people who want to come to you, and like I'd rather have 5 really genuine people who want to listen to me, who want to ask me questions, than have a million people who know nothing about me,
Yeah.
and just watch because it looks cool. And I
Hmm.
think that's the biggest difference. That's a big difference too.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's the whole thing of the one thing too is like when I go and hunt, the last like I turn off everything,
Hmm.
like and that's Instagram, everything like that. I'm not hunting because of Instagram. Like I'm hunting because I love it. Like no one saw the 7 weekends I was scouting these bucks last year, and
Hmm.
just diving into it, trying to figure them out. If you go in the mindset of like you just love this and genuinely like that should be everyone's mindset. It's obviously not, and it kind of it frustrates me, and that's something that's frustrated me within the industry is that. But if you just go in like you're sitting on top of the mountain, you don't have a phone, there's no one talking to you, you're just having a good time. Like that's what you should go into, and that's going to create the hard work. If you kind of value the outdoors in a way, instead of the likes or anything like that, you're going to trajectory or whatever, it's just going to go up, and the reputation and stuff like that. Um, I could care less if anybody likes me or doesn't like me. Like majority of people do. I'm literally nice to everyone.
For sure.
Um, but the thing is, there's a lot of jealousy too, and I've
Hmm.
experienced it. And like said, like people getting jealous, and you're like, you didn't see the amount of work that I put in to shoot that animal. There's no, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, but it's that's what's going to come with it. If you build fame, you're going to get hate, and that's a fact. And I have no like if literally I said like if I don't care about followers or anything like that. Um, I just what I love to see in anything like that is if I do these podcasts and then someone hits me up and be like, "Hey, like your info helped me and I killed my first elk this year, or I killed my first deer with this year, or it literally just got me into the mountains."
Hmm.
That's the only thing I care about. Like that makes me more excited than anything
Hmm.
myself, personal achievements is people getting into the outdoors and enjoying it because that's the whole thing. There's not a lot of hunters in the United States, and not a lot of hunters that voice them out. You mean everywhere. Colorado's getting hit hard with stuff and all
Hmm.
that, and it just shows how many lack of hunters that really enjoy the experience. Um, you're just trying to build that and branch it out more. That's what I've loved the most about being in the industry, probably.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. You were saying, I think kind of like when we started that you felt like really in the last like 5 or 6 years that you kind of felt like you got your feet under you as far as hunting goes and like being more consistent. What are some, other than just like putting in the reps and like you said, you've been hunting since you were a little kid. But is there anything like, or any couple of things specifically that stand out that you really feel like helped you kind of be like, you know what, I feel like I have this figured out. I feel like I'm kind of getting good at this and I can be consistent and put something down most places that I go.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think it's the biggest thing you can do, and the biggest thing I did to kind of get over the hump. And I have to think it was probably, I've been on a pretty good streak now. When I was in Oregon, um, 8 years ago or 7 years ago, uh, is I literally dove into it, and all I did was just try to figure out animal behavior. If you're in the mountains and if you're just out there, and if I come across, and even to this day, if I come across animals, and especially when you're watching deer stuff in the high country, but even elk, if you just sit there and watch them and figure out what they're doing, just like why are they feeding this way, you'll see, them scent checking and everything, but also just their terrain and where they're traveling. Like I'll follow, like when I was in Oregon and just scouting all the time like crazy, it'd be February, and I like even this time January, I'd just be going out hiking and then figuring out, and it's a lot easier in that temperate, that climate
For
because they're
sure.
just going to be same place instead of Wyoming where they migrate. But if you just see how they move through the hillsides, you'll figure out like, hey, they're bedding on this type of stuff, nearest to this bedding, nearest to water, and stuff like that. That gave me a fast track into being more consistent in a sense of like being on elk every single day.
Hmm.
Um, is finding their terrain. Like I can look at a map now and literally I'll any unit I'll pick out a spot like these, top four spots where there's going to be elk. Odds are all four of those will have elk. You know, so it's just figuring out animal behavior, how they move through country, the path of least resistance, but also just bedding, water, feed. Um, that kind of like gave me a lot more confidence in a sense. Like I know for a fact today I'm going to get into elk,
Hmm.
and that's elk specific. I love mule deer more than anything, but mule deer just they they got me guessing all the time. So, but I still go into it like I'm going to find a good buck in the summer. It could take me all summer to find it, but I'm going to keep hitting areas, hitting good looking areas, and try to find them. But for elk specifically, because I dove into it so much, and that's the only thing I love wild game. You know what I mean? Like I love it, and I haven't ate any sort of store bought beef in 8 years because I've
Hmm.
always had just freezers full.
Hmm.
Um, is I want to kill an elk every year because that's so much meat.
Hmm.
Um, so that's my whole thing. I'm like I never want to have a low freezer. Right now, I have four freezers full, but
I love that for
um,
you.
yeah, yeah, you want some, but yeah, it's the whole thing is just the mindset of I'm not going into every fall like, hey, just walking in, whacking an animal. That's never going to happen for me. Like maybe for like elk, I don't really scout for elk anymore, but the amount of years that I just dove into animal behavior, watching them
Hmm.
move, figuring them out, that was the fastest track to get into, um, being more consistent. But that's all that I have to say is you're not going to figure that out from the couch. You have to be in the woods. Like no matter what, even if you're there hunting, you're going to create more opportunities when you're out in the mountains, and you'll start to figure out a lot more the more days you spend per year in the hills.
Yeah, I think that's important because I feel like a lot of times, like when I started hunting in Texas and moved out to Colorado, and the first season I was hunting out here, like a lot of people talk about e-scouting, and I was like, oh, okay, like that's cool. I don't even have to go there. I can just look at maps online. I don't have to go to the place, and I can figure it out. And Colorado has something what's called they call it like a hunt planner, but basically, like as my first time ever, and anyone can use them whether you've been here for a year or all of your life. Like, hey, here's the game that I am hunting, here's the unit that I'm hunting in, and they'll connect you with the wildlife biologist of that area. And then, so between like the e scouting, because like I said, I thought that I could figure it out without ever having to go there, between the e scouting and then talking to a wildlife biologist, which they actually are very informative and told me a lot of information. Like, hey, and kind of to what you're talking about, elk like to feed on this. Here's the kind of areas that they're typically going to be bedding in this time of year out here, dependent or due to the terrain that's in this unit. And so they'll tell you literally anything and all the things you need to know. But I do not think that compares to actually getting out there and seeing the terrain for yourself, seeing those areas for yourself, seeing that feed for yourself, and
Hmm.
actually experiencing it. And I think that's one thing that like not that I needed that to learn that, right? But I think just social media, once again, like everyone popularizes the whole e-scouting thing. And not to say that no one uses it's not important, right? Like there's value in
Hmm.
it. But I was like, oh yeah, like I don't even have to go there. I can figure it out myself without ever even going. And I quickly learned you got to get out there.
Yes. Yep. You got to get out there and just see at least what to, like that's the biggest thing I do. If I'm looking at any sort of map, I always have topography on. So I can
Mhm.
see the topography lines and typically you can tell when they're going to bed, especially on north slopes that are timbered, where those benches are and where the elk are going to bed. It's like now, especially after just being in the field, that's the one thing. If you're going out for like your first year scouting or just trying to figure stuff out, mark your different locations of being like, hey, this is where they can get water. And then if you find like where you can obviously tell they've been bedding, just mark that and then go home, and then put it on your desktop or anything on your phone and put the satellite and then put topography. And then you're going to see those certain patterns, and then that's when you go into e-scouting for, say I'm going to go hunt Montana or Idaho. I'll go in there and look for those same, topography lines and where they're going to feed and bed and all this stuff and get water. Um, that's probably the best tip, I guess, to go for if you're like just getting into it, trying to figure stuff out, and then you're going to be using e-scouting because then you're going to start seeing a lot of similarities between every single spot. Um, but yeah, I use e-scouting a lot for the out of state stuff. Uh, but I won't leave state to go. I'm gonna scout Wyoming all summer.
Mhm.
But like if I have Montana tag, I'll just look at a map, be like, hey, this matches whatever I've seen in Wyoming or anywhere,
Mhm.
and then that helps me pinpoint where I think I've killed two bulls in different states where I've shot them on a pin that I've dropped when I was e-scouting. So, it's
Nice.
just, yeah, which that was pretty crazy. But like, that's just, the
Humble brag.
topography and yeah, humble brag. I didn't want to do that, but it's just once you get it so dialed in, you'll start to figure out at least like I'm
Yeah.
going to find elk here, and you go in a lot more confident. And that's one thing is just you do build confidence. Um, like I never go into a season that I'm going to kill anything. That's the thing. I'm like, hey, I'm not going to kill nothing this year. There's nothing
Mhm.
guaranteed, but I do have the confidence that I'm going to create an opportunity. You know, so if you're believing like I'm going to create an opportunity, then you're going to manifest that in a way, just because you're working hard and you're trying to figure it out. If you go in like, man, I'm not going to see anything, like, then odds are you probably weren't because you're just not going to try hard. Um, just just believing in yourself and creating opportunities. But like I said, I don't go in there and be like, I'm going to shoot this bull this year or like I'm going to
Mhm.
shoot this deer this year because they're wild animals. They're not just going to lay over and die. Like they can do anything they want. Um,
Mhm.
but you just start to build more confidence when you're starting to get into more animals, get into elk every single day. Um, then that's just going to create more success and more consistency in getting an animal on the ground.
Yeah, I kind of have like similar like, and obviously being a bit newer to it, like my expectation is still and should not be that I'm gonna fill my tag. And I think too, like there's something that's like humbling about that makes me enjoy the experience more, right? Like even say I've put in all the work and I know for a fact that when I go in on opening day and I've seen this bull there day in and day out, whatever, like there's still no guarantee, right? Like you could see, like everyone talks about, you could see an elk in the same place every single day, and then opening day shows up and you never see that bull again.
Yeah,
And so like you never know what happens, you never know what things could change. But I think too, like, and kind of like we were talking about previously, just enjoying like the process of it so much more. Yeah, obviously the goal is to always harvest an animal and fill your tag, like that's 100% the
yep,
goal every single time. But for me, and it sounds like similar for you, like I genuinely enjoy just the process of getting out there. Kind of like you said, you're encouraging people to just get on the mountain, spend time outdoors. And if that looks like hunting, then that's cool, but that doesn't have to be hunting either. Like if you just want to
no.
get outdoors and just enjoy like what the outdoors does for you, like I encourage that too.
Yeah. The amount of time, like I hike in the mountains more without a weapon than I hike with a weapon, Like
Mm-hmm.
especially in the summer, like I'll go on backpack trips and stuff like that in June and all that. But then as soon as July hits, I'll go scouting for deer and I
Mm-hmm.
don't have a weapon in my hand. Like I'm literally just, the whole purpose is to find a big buck and like all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But genuinely, I just love backpacking. So it kind of just works hand in hand. And, um, that time in the mountains though, you just start to get accustomed to animal behavior, figuring them out. And what I mean, like legitimately, if you spot something and it doesn't see you, just sit there and watch it and
Mm-hmm.
like analyze what they're doing, because then you're just going to learn a lot more. and especially you could mark stuff down and start writing notes and everything. But it's just the time in the field is going to trump anything. You can't sit there and do however many different courses or anything like that and have a fast track. There's no such thing as a fast track into being consistent. You
Yeah.
have to spend the time to do that. The one thing that, now whatever how many years I've killed elk in a row and like all that stuff, no one saw the years when I was 12 to 17 and didn't kill an elk. You know,
Hmm.
like all those years that I'm just sitting there, just not doing good, wounded a big bull and like all that stuff. No one saw that, just heartache the whole time. But I value those years because I know, that I haven't been successful every single year since I've been 12. If that's the case, then I'd be like a spoiled brat. Like, yeah,
Right.
I needed to have those years of just getting kicked in the
Yeah.
dirt, during my youth, just to figure out like the rewarding part of it too. When you do get in on the ground, it's just like, man, this is tough, and the percentages of people that aren't successful every year, it's very, very low. So, or very high in a sense of people not being successful, and
Hmm.
it's just that every single year I go into it like I'm could be a part of that percentage that's not, or be a percentage that is, and it's just it's a fun. I go into it because it's not like it builds it because you work harder, and that's the thing. It's like I'll shoot my bow more consistently, and well, shooting every day, and just want to be more proficient,
Hmm.
and that's the whole thing. It's just being proficient at all of it, between scouting, time in the field, animal behavior, but also you got to be proficient in your weapon if you're going to be able to make the shot. So, and so you want to make sure you're going to have a lot more confidence. Those years when I was 12 to 17, I had no confidence in my bow or like in my setup. I'm like, one arrow would fly left, one arrow would fly right. I'm just like, I don't know, like I'm going out and it does like affect you when you're hunting because you're like, well, like, can I make this shot? But if you go into it and be like, I can make all these shots, then you're going to be set. Just being confident in your whole setup is the biggest thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's important. Yeah, when I was in Texas, people would go. I shot my bow for an entire year before I ever went out on my first hunt to even attempt to send an arrow at a critter. And people would come in and they would be getting their first bow ever that day, and their first hunt ever was the next day. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, which in Texas is a little bit more realistic because if you're hunting a feeder and from a blind and whatever, like I get it. Maybe 20 yards is the farthest shot you're going to take. But even still, when I first started at 20 yards, like I was not that consistent. Like my groups were still pretty big at
Yeah.
20 yards when I first started. So I'm just like, I don't know. And some people couldn't care less about whether or not they're wounding a critter or
Yeah.
what the outcome is gonna be. But I was like, man, I just want to be proficient and confident and know that like up to a certain distance, I'm confident at this distance, and I know that when that pin is on that critter, that it's gonna go down no
Yep.
matter what happens. And obviously, there's still some mistakes that can happen.
Hmm.
Like with bow hunting, it's definitely more common than it is with hunting with a rifle. But I think too, to your point, like I think people will say rifle hunting is easier. Yes, maybe I think you have more opportunity, but I'm someone who I don't shoot my rifle year round.
Hmm.
So I'm like, if I'm gonna have a rifle tag in my pocket, you best believe I'm gonna get out there and I'm gonna start shooting my rifle a lot more often because
Yeah.
I don't want to be in any random situation where I'm like, oh crap, I don't know what I need to do here.
Yeah. Or if my rifle's off or anything like that. Like, yeah, that's the thing. And,
Yeah.
there is like in being proficient, but the thing is, I want everything to work smoothly. I want that animal to die within seconds. And that's
Mhm.
the thing.
Yeah. Mhm.
Quick, done, and everything like that. I've hated tracking animals forever. I've been part of like, my brother's shooting some and like we're tracking all day and it just
Yeah.
sucks, but it happens. Even myself, hit some animals not great. Um, and there's also variables like deflections or stuff like that.
Mhm.
Uh, but the best feeling in the world is when you can put it right where you want it and watch that arrow and just hit right in your spot, and that arrow and that bull dies within 20 yards. That's the goal. And it's it's definitely a process though. Like you have to shoot, you have to become consistent because, and the one thing too is you're not going to be so I guess proficient in your shooting on animals unless you shoot animals. You
Yeah.
have to get in there. It's going to be hard. The first bulls that I ever called in or had shots at, I was a wreck. Like, I mean, could not breathe because that freaking animal was like right there, and forgetting how, I couldn't pull my bow back because I forgot to breathe. Um,
Mhm.
some of them worked out, like I ended up killing the bull, but I don't remember that shot at all. It was just like
What
blacked
happened?
out. Yep,
Yeah.
just like, oh my gosh, that happened, and I just stuck a bull. I don't even know where I hit him, you know.
Mhm.
But now, especially over the years and progressing, I remember everything within the shot, within the whole sequence, and doing that. But that all became from repetition, and repetition is going to just make you better at everything. Um, so that's just another thing. It's just like don't expect to be like shooting your target and then coming up on a bull and you're just going to be like, oh, cool. I guarantee you your first bull that's coming in big on your face, you're probably going to be freaking out a little bit. But just try. I don't know if there is some exercise you could do that. Maybe you could just start doing, bungee jumping or something to get your adrenaline up, but to kind of offset just to know that feeling. But
Mm.
it's there's nothing more rushing than when a bull is screaming in your face. And I've done a lot of crazy stuff. That is still like the most adrenaline dump I've ever had. Um, so it's fun. I don't know. I just love that. Just because continuously every year it's like just a crack addict. Just we're waiting for that moment. Um, and I don't know. It's just I want everyone to kind of experience that too, especially
Mhm.
full draw on a bull at 10 yards as he's just literally bugling and screaming in your face.
Mhm.
It's life changing, really. Like it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of comments. One, you're talking about just being like familiar with your weapon or whatever. I actually missed an opportunity on a buck in Missouri this year because my safety was on and I didn't think to turn it off. So I'm going like I have my dot is on him and I'm like, all right, breathe. I know what I'm doing here. And I'm like, why the hell is my trigger not going off? Like, what's happening? I'm like freaking out that my gun is broken. Sure
Hmm.
enough, like once this buck is said and gone, my safety's on. And I was like, cool. Wish I would have realized that. Like,
Yeah.
didn't even think to check it. So, like, they're just things. And last season I had, it was during archery season. I think maybe even I told you about this. I had a bear
Hmm.
that had come in at like 15 yards. And it was the first time I've ever seen a bear that close in the wild in my life. And I had ranged everything. I was sitting a wallow waiting for elk, but like was kind of in bear country too. Had ranged everything around me. Nothing was further than 20 yards. Nothing. Not one thing that I could shoot at was
Hmm.
further than 20 yards. And this bear comes in and I'm panicking because I forgot how far away he is. He was 15, 20 yards away. And like I forgot, so I ranged him quickly and like it didn't spook him doing that. But I also didn't have an arrow knocked. And I
Hmm.
also was not as a lefty facing in the direction I needed to be facing to be drawing back where I would be shooting in the direction that this bear was. So all these things I'm just panicking about
Hmm.
because there's this large critter in front of me that I've never been this close to before. And sure enough, I end up spooking it
Yeah.
because I had to make all of this movement just to get to where I could actually even draw back. Like I didn't even get to draw back on it because all the
Yeah.
things leading up to that moment were not in line.
Yep.
So there's nothing that compares to just having any animal. Like the first deer that I ever harvested, like there's nothing that compares to that feeling.
Hmm.
And I hear some people say like once they've been doing it for years, sometimes it goes away, and maybe that's true, maybe it isn't. But
I think it is to a certain extent, but which
okay,
I'll go back to that. But and that's the thing too. Like within the having the safety on, and then also just the bear coming in, that's experiences that help you learn.
yeah,
And
for
that's
sure.
something that people that if it's gonna happen to everyone. It's happened to me, and then you won't do it again. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
the whole process of it, and especially and once it would get me down pretty bit like when it happened, but then as I got
Mm-hmm.
older, I'm like I would never change those situations for the world because I learned so much within that experience that it's just going to carry me over, and then being more consistent, just being ready and all that stuff, but also you're going to become you know, learning from those experiences and just applying it later in the correct way. Um, but the one thing too, like saying, is like losing that, um, I guess, or like the whole rush of it and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one thing is like I definitely have never lost that. The one thing I have lost is the freaking out when stuff's coming going down.
Mm-hmm.
Like yeah, so like besides like the moose, like within the last I'd say 3 or 4 years, like pretty calm in every situation of when I'm going to shoot the animal. The moose was a little bit different this year. I
I
was kind of
watched that,
like,
by the way. That was crazy.
yeah, it's nuts. It's
It's
it's a
crazy.
crazy hunt. They're a big animal, and seeing that, and that's my dream hunt. My whole
Mm-hmm.
entire life is like if I could shoot a moose, I can die the next day type thing. Like I
Mm-hmm.
just like
Yeah.
that's my dream hunt. And so when that bull was coming in, I was typewriter leg shaking like a leaf, like just like a big bull's coming in, an elk and stuff when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
When it came time to kill him, like I kind of just like switched over, and I think that's just repetition.
For sure. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but the one thing now is like if I'm like surrounded by bulls bugling, I don't know. I just don't I don't get that, just shaking like adrenaline after I shoot. Even then, I'm pretty calm, but like it's just but that comes with repetition, and like honestly I'm glad I do that now because I don't freak out. So it's like when like this year there at one point I had five bulls beagling in this basin, and two of them
Mm-hmm.
were within 100 yards of me, and I was still just standing there just thinking, I'm just like, okay, like what do I do, and like all this, like which one should I go after, not like
Mm-hmm.
freaking out or like shaking, more nonchalant, just like I could go after this bull or that one, and then snuck on them. It's just, which I like that, and that will become with anyone that hunts long enough is probably going to be start to feel that. One thing that doesn't change is like when I shoot that animal and I see it go down, there is that excitement of just like it happened, and
Mm-hmm.
like this is a crazy experience and like awesome. And actually, I can remember stuff better now because I don't freak out. So
I
yeah,
remembered it.
yeah, I'm like, oh, I remember shooting that animal. So, but
Yeah.
I think you do change, and if there is a day where I'm just like so just like monotone, just like, oh, I just shot a bull, cool, all that, then I shouldn't be doing it anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because there is a lot of excitement. There's also a bit of remorse, just like I just took the animal's life, but
Mm-hmm.
you are successful, and that's one thing I was just like, I have meat, I have this whole experience, and just take that in, and just it's exciting. Um, but yeah, no, I love every bit of it, but I think the adrenaline dumps and stuff like that will start to change.
Yeah, it's kind of where they like change over time because I think, and it's also probably dependent. Like a deer for me, I've hunted deer more than anything else. Obviously, different if I'm sitting in a stand or if I'm spot and stalking or whatever. But like the bulls that on the hunts that I've been on, like I haven't harvested one myself, but the hunts that I've seen them harvested on, they weren't bugling. So I've yet to have one like bugle in my face. I've heard them from a distance, obviously, so I
Hmm.
just know when that moment comes for me, like I mean, I don't know what I'm gonna feel, but I just know it's gonna be the wildest moment
Oh
because
yeah.
everyone talks about it. But I think too, just understanding, like, and I'm curious, maybe your thoughts on this, your limits in those situations, right? Like, for me, I think if I'm not feeling like I can take a legitimately good shot when my heart rate is through the roof and I'm panicking, I personally don't think that I'm taking it. I know some people would. But like for example, I had an antelope this year. He came into about 85 yards, and like I'm not uncomfortable taking an 85-yard shot. I shoot that in 3D all the time. But it was like 30-mile-an-hour winds. It was a frontal shot, so a slightly smaller target, and an antelope is even smaller than a deer. So for me, it was like, okay, it's 85 yards, but it's probably 20 to 30-mile-an-hour winds. It's a frontal shot. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to let this guy pass. But I like, there are a couple other people that were like, why the hell did you not take the shot? So I'm curious if like if you have moments where you're like, yeah, I should probably not shoot, or if you just kind of send it anyways and hope for the best.
No, and that's the thing. I'm per se a gunslinger. Like for
Mhm.
sure, like we'll take some, iffy shots and stuff like that. But like that situation, like, 85 yards frontal, especially on antelope, they're very fast.
Mhm.
And you're gonna have drift with your arrow, like not. But like this year, I had a bull. He's probably like I think at 40 yards, guessing 40 yards, drew back on him, and my 40-yard pin was buried on him, but my top, 30 and 20 were on branches you know,
Mhm.
and a part of me is like, maybe it will go through there, but also I could deflect and just whack him, and um, I think it's shot dependent. Like I am more confident in iffy shots. Like I shot a bull 2 years ago, and he was coming in like kind of towards me, but angling a quarter toward me, and but he was below me, so I'm like pulled back on him. I'm trying to figure out my shot. I'm like, I can't shoot him behind the shoulder because it's just gonna go through his guts, and I can't shoot him frontal because it's covered. But I was like, I
Okay.
could fit the arrow between his shoulder and his spine, like right there,
Mhm.
and shot downhill on him, and that arrow buried almost to the fletchings, and just right through both lungs, or top lung down,
Mhm.
and that bull died within 30 yards. But that is a shot, and especially I have like the picture of him, and people are like, "How did like what the fuck?" I'm just like, that becomes with confidence. If I
Mhm.
was if I was got whatever 8 years ago or 9 years ago or 10 years ago, I would have shit the bed on that shot and just been like, I don't even know where to hit him, and then probably would have shot and hit him in the shoulder or something like that. But
Mhm.
that whole sequence of just being like, the elk's anatomy, then
Mhm.
I could make those kind of questionable shots. I love shooting elk frontal, That's the thing. If I have a
Mm.
frontal shot, that he's getting it. Um, but uh, I think it's just dependent. And like you said, like I would not have shot at an antelope 85 yards with 30-mile-an-hour winds in a frontal. Like even broadside, that's a tough shot. You're gonna have to hold off for the wind, um, and they're fast and everything like that. So no, I think that's a good choice. And that's going to become to your discretion,
Right.
and your ability. Because I've definitely shot some shots. Well, I shot an antelope at 90 yards this year. So it's just, and I know my capabilities though, and
Right. For sure.
extremely confident within that shot. Um, but not everyone is going to do that or try to do that, which I understand. Just know your abilities, know your personal like range you can shoot,
Hmm.
because some guys can shoot out to 80 yards, but can't hit the broadside of a barn when an animal's there before it's 40 yards. So,
Right.
it's just there's a lot of variables when you're out in the field compared to when you're standing flat-footed at your house shooting. You're going to be shooting uphill, downhill. Make sure your third axis is good, all that stuff, and um, it's just it's your discretion. I'm not going to judge people for making certain shots or anything like that.
Hmm.
Um, I've seen some people make some wild shots and it's successful, and
Hmm.
they're confident within that shot. But I've been like, for me, I'm like, I probably wouldn't have took that, but I'm not going to be like, hey, like you're an asshole for doing that, like that's
For
their
sure.
shot, that's their decision. I don't care at all, you know. But yeah, it's just your discretion. If you don't feel comfortable, then don't shoot. It's not the
Yeah.
end of the world.
I get people who are like, the like you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and I'm like, you're right. You
Hmm.
also don't like. I didn't want to freaking wound an antelope, or just. I mean, I guess if I totally missed, that would be my best option there.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that too. If that's someone's mindset, it's like, are you actually out there for like the right reasons, or like what are you out there
Hmm.
for?
Yep. Well, that's what you'll get is those people taking those real questionable shots or something like that because of the aesthetic of like I killed something, or just like that kind
Mm.
of thing.
Yeah, in the
Like,
instance, like if you got it and if you were successful.
yep. Because if you
Yeah.
miss it, you're not going to hear about it from them. But you know what I mean? Like it's going to
Mhm.
be, I'm not sure what it is. Maybe I don't know. I've never kind of been in that. I've definitely wounded animals. It's been more or less like deflections, or when I was younger,
Yep.
made just bad decisions that I learned from.
Mhm.
Um, but it's going to happen to a hunter and anything like that. But if you force shots, it's going to happen a lot more. And I will
Right.
say, like I do, in fact, like force shots. I'm not going to say like but I know my abilities. Like the bull I
Right.
shot this year, he was up above me on a steep hillside, and I had like I don't know, a softball size opening through these trees at 30 yards, and I was like, I can fit it through that. And
Yeah. Yeah.
boom, shot didn't hit any sticks at all, and whacked him like perfect heart shot. But other people wouldn't have shot because been like, you're so focused on the bull, you're not going to see all the sticks. But I kind of just, I've had enough shots where I've had deflections and totally miss them because I didn't
Mhm.
see the freaking stick that was right there. So now, like my perception, I really analyze like what's in front of me before I shoot, but and just picking different openings and stuff like that. But that's just discretion. You know what I mean? Like if I wouldn't have shot or whatever because I thought I couldn't make it, then I would be happier than deflection hitting him in the shoulder and not finding him.
I think it comes down to knowing your equipment too. Like at a certain distance, say it was like 50, 60 yards, like knowing the arc of your arrow and like, is
Hmm.
that little hole that you have to shoot through, like, is your arrow gonna arc or is it gonna go, like, are you shooting fast enough that you don't even have to worry about that? That's one thing what I like. I don't always think that like 3D transitions or translates over to hunting.
Hmm.
Just because, like you said, as a foam animal, it feels totally different. Like you're taking shots that you probably wouldn't normally take. So it doesn't, I
Hmm.
don't feel like it transitions or translates very well, but what I do think it helps is learning your arrow path and like
Yes.
what can you shoot between, what can you maybe shoot through, what can you maybe shoot around, because like I've drawn back on a deer before and I pull up and I look through my sight, I'm looking through my peep and all these branches are in my sight or in my, yeah, right behind my sight, and I'm like, and I'm shooting a mechanical broadhead. So like, well, I'm not going to
Odds
shoot
are,
a,
yeah.
yeah, I'm not going to shoot a mechanical when there's all these branches in my sight. So I just had to let this deer walk. And I'm like, well, that
Yep.
was cool.
Yep.
Love that.
Yeah. Which is fine. You know what I mean? Like
No, for
it's
sure.
it's
Yeah.
better with that happening than having a deflection, worst case scenario hitting it and then not finding it.
Right. And then
But
like in 3D, if there's branches on my sight, I'm going to try to shoot it just to see what
send
happens.
it.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Because I think it's
Yep.
important just to, yeah, like I said, learn your equipment, learn what's going to happen in those situations.
Hmm.
And then you quickly realize that like your arrow's not going to go where you want it to go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why some of those tacks are pretty good. Like the tacks and stuff to go shoot, see, what your trajectory of, or even Western Hunt Fest. Like you
Yeah,
you have the
yeah.
course and just like you're forcing shots, but just remember you're forcing shots on foam. It doesn't matter. Like you're gonna see your trajectory. You're gonna see if you can actually squeeze a shot between trees. Like V and the vitals right there.
Mhm.
If you can't hit that, then do not shoot an animal because it's not. You're gonna center punch a tree if that's the case. If you just even
Yeah.
deflect off, um, you'll kind of get a good range of what your abilities are when you're in a calm environment. Um, it's going to be way different when there's an animal standing there and you have that same shot.
Yeah, the number of times I've taken a shot like on attack or Western Hunt Fest or whatever, and I'm like, I would have never taken that and really. And sometimes it even ends well. Like sometimes I'm in the 10 or 12 ring, and I'm like, wow, that
Yeah.
was nice, but like I don't think that I would have taken that in real life.
No, no.
But
Yep.
it's cool to learn those things. I do want like kind of one more question before we wrap up here. Obviously, you're with Kifaru and want to talk kind of about the importance of a good pack and a pack system and kind of what if you want to speak to Kifaru specifically or just like a good pack in general, kind of what that looks like and yeah, why a good pack is important.
Yes. So the one thing I say, like with having a good pack, and especially the way I hunt, where I'm backpacking in the backcountry or anything like that, is the last thing I'm going to worry about is my pack and if it can haul weight. You know,
Mhm.
I've had some previous pack companies before I got a Kafaru, and I had malfunctions, like either
Mhm.
stuff breaking on the frame or just like all this different stuff, and it builds into your head of like I can use this pack, but I can't go that far because one's if I'm 5 miles back and packing out elk and the freaking frame snaps, So the biggest thing in having a good quality pack, and especially a pack that can haul weight, is having the confidence, because I have a confidence, like especially after using Kifaru as a customer, and that's why I came to work for Kifaru,
Mhm.
was I know for a fact wherever I'm at, I can kill an animal and I'm going to get that animal out. I'm not going to have a pack malfunction. The first thing that's going to fail is going to be myself, you know.
Mhm.
So it's just having that whole confidence within hauling weight and being able to walk the next day and all that stuff is like you want to have a good suspension system that carries within your posterior chain. And some stuff like other pack companies, you get a lot, different sore points and stuff like that. But I will say, like within the top of the packs in the industry, all of us are very good, and very
Okay.
good quality. Um, it is a saturated market, but it's a saturated market of like very good packs, and people are different. So the thing is, like, if you have a buddy that has another pack, or has, either buddy that you have a Stone Glacier, your buddy has Kafaru, throw on that pack and just see what it is. Like, I feel like that's going to be the best way to be able to tell what pack you want. Like, I know I've recommended Stone Glaciers to people. I've recommended, EXO and stuff like that for people's back types and how it
Mhm.
fits them. I just know Kafaru fits me the best, and I know for a fact I can haul as much as my body weight or more. Like I did it several times in 2024, especially with the moose hunt and different stuff.
Mhm.
Um, I know my frame's not going to break, and I'm going to be able to get out. If I can get up on my 2 feet with any sort of weight with Kafaru, I'm going to get to where my destination is. Um,
Nice.
so it's just the importance of a pack, in a sense, is the quality, because the quality is going to translate to when you have weight into it in the feel, but also
Mhm.
any sort of cheaper stuff is going to fall apart and eventually fall apart and stuff. If you have high quality gear, um, you invest in that, right? That's just like anything. You invest in what you're going to get for quality. Um, like that was one thing. I spent cheaper money going up through high school and stuff like that for different packs, and then because Kifaru was at a certain price point, but then eventually I should have saved money and just bought a Kifaru right off the bat, because as soon as that last pack malfunctioned on me, I bought a Kifaru that night. As soon as I got back, packing out, finally getting out the elk, I bought a Kifaru that night and haven't looked back. And it is kind of like I get that I work for Kifaru, but for the listener, the reason I work for Kifaru is because of the packs and system. I moved to another state to work for them because I believe them so much. So it's discretion. Like if you come up to me and you have a Stone Glacier, you have initial scent or EXO or anything like that, you're still going to be my friend. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I could care less. Like you're still a hunter. I'm not going to be bitter or anything. Like you're a hunter, you're a friend of mine. So whatever you pack you have doesn't matter. Get into the mountains and just have a good time.
Yeah, no, I agree entirely, and I think too, it's like you said, personal preference as far as how it fits. And same for me. Like Kifaru is the
Hmm.
only frame that I've found that fits me comfortably.
Hmm.
I tried another pack last year, and also I went a little cheaper too. Kind of like you said, I kind of went the cheaper route for my very first kind of backcountry pack for hunting, and had full regrets. And multiple people, actually, what the worst part about it is, multiple people told me not to get this pack. But I was like, it was my
Yeah.
first season out here, and I had so much gear that I had to buy. I didn't even realize how much money I was going to be spending on gear alone.
Hmm.
And so I was like, all right, like some things I'll skimp on, some things I'll like are important, and I'll go all out on. And
Hmm.
the pack was definitely one thing that I skimped on, not thinking I don't know why. Like the pack carries everything. Why did I not think that that was going to be
Yeah.
of importance? But whatever, you know what?
Hmm.
You live and you learn.
Yep.
And very quickly realized like it was fine carrying camping or just like if I was just day hiking with it. I was like, oh yeah, like this is a good pack. But the
Hmm.
second like I was with a buddy and they put an elk down and I throw an elk quarter and some extra meat in there and I'm like, this is painful. Like
Hmm.
this
Yeah.
hurts, and not that like that much weight is really gonna feel good anyways,
Yes.
but it was like this shouldn't be like this kind of thing. And obviously, I'm also thinking that that pack was going to break at any moment. Like I was questioning,
Oh
and we
yeah.
didn't even have that long of a hike out. And I'm like, there might come a moment where in this short hike out that I think this bag is going to break. So
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
definitely want to have confidence in my bag and that. And I think investing, yeah, maybe it's an expensive pack, but like you said, they're going to last a really long time. I know people who have had Kifaru packs for years. They have like frames that I don't even think Kifaru makes anymore,
Oh,
and
you
they're
definitely
like,
not.
"Oh, I'm never going to get rid of it though because it works and it lasts
Hmm.
me so long."
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing I guess we deal with too is like you get a guy coming up to a show and he's like, yeah, he's like, I've had this pack for 15 years, and this frame that we is probably our fifth rendition, since, and there's like, I love it. I don't need to change, and that's something, I love to hear because it shows our quality, it shows everything like that. And it's just gonna last, and that's one thing. If you invest in a car, like you're spending a lot of money on that car and you're
Mhm.
hoping that it lasts for as long as you have it until it literally, I don't know, falls apart from just from just overexertion. But that's going to take a lifetime, especially our frames. They last forever. You can always update bags and stuff like that. But yeah, just investing in quality gear because that's the one thing. When you get an animal down, the one thing that you're going to wish that you had is a high quality pack. Like most packs all work great when it's 40 pounds and just walking around. But until you get 80 plus or even 100 plus, you're going to be wishing you had, a good suspension system. So, try everything. And if you have, we're in Shields and stuff like that now and in different stores. If you have them close to you, just go and try it on. Just feel the waist belt system and everything like that. And if they have weight, throw it in there and just feel it. Like that's one of our biggest selling points. Like as soon as I'm at a show and the guy's like, hey, can you throw weight in this? They put it on. They're like, oh, I see why, people hype it up so much. But yeah, either way, if you have a backpack, just get in the mountains. you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yep.
agree throwing weight in it too because I had never really put much weight in the one that I had before up until I
Hmm.
threw an out quarter in it. That was the first time I had put any significant amount of weight in it, so I very much found out the hard way.
Yep.
But then when I got my pack, it was at the Western Hunt Expo last year, and I think you guys had like 100-pound sandbag or something like that at the booth,
Hmm.
and I was like, throw that sucker in there, like I want to see what that feels
Yeah,
like. And as
you
soon as I
did.
put that, yeah, and as soon as I
Yeah.
walked around with it, I was like, oh shit, like this doesn't feel too bad.
Hmm.
Take my
Yeah.
money.
You're like, I got it. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
which
that
is
was awesome.
obviously harder to do at like a Shields or something like that. But
Hmm.
the fortunate part about a Shields is you can buy it, go home, put weight in it, and walk around your house. And if it doesn't feel right, you can take it right back. They've got a sweet
A
return
good
policy.
return
But I
policy.
definitely think that like putting weight in it is super important because that'll
Oh yeah,
definitely change how it feels.
absolutely. You need to put weight into it to see. And if you're at a show, go around to every pack company and ask them to put weight in their packs, like, and just throw them on. That's the thing. Like at Western Hunt, we're definitely going to have like an 85-pound sandbag that you can throw on, and or maybe even a 90
Hmm.
that you can throw on, and you're going to feel it. And then if you guys want to take those sandbags over to Stone Glacier or EXO or anyone, take them over there and tell them to throw it in there. And I trust in Kafaro that will come out on top.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's awesome. Well, we're coming up on an hour here. I end all of my episodes asking my guests, what does wild strength mean to you, or what comes to mind when you think of wild strength? So, Kenny, what comes to mind, or what do you think when you hear wild strength?
Wild strength, I think of heavy packs. Like that's the thing. Yeah, and that's one thing I love is heavy pack outs. And
Yeah.
if I'm helping someone kill like even an elk or anything like that, like I guarantee and I always promise, like if you don't want to pack this animal out, I'll pack it out for you. I think of, I kind of have a weird, I guess, like mental tick, and uh,
We'll
I
call
look
it
forward.
that.
Yeah, a weird mental tick, but like if there's weight to be packed, I love it. So wild strength, I think a wild man packing meat, like that's the thing. Yep.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. And I think there's this like mental resiliency that you have to, whether it's like, and I've heard you tell stories where you've packed a whole mule deer out at once, or you've done an elk and just two pack outs or whatever. And I think yeah, the mental tick, we'll call it, or the
Yeah.
mental resiliency that you
Yeah.
have to just do that, right? And whether it
Hmm.
is a heavy pack or whether it is just like staying out there for days on end, like it takes a lot of freaking strength to do both of those things. And both, I would say, take a mental tick for those things to happen.
Hmm. Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, if people want to find you, if they have questions, if they want to reach out, where can they find you? I know you're not
Yeah.
a lover of social media, but where can they find
Yeah.
you?
Yeah. So all I have is just an Instagram, and that's it. And it's just at Kenneth Thrall. So it's just at my name. Um, and reach out to me. Like if you guys have any questions, DMs or anything like that. I do hate Instagram, but I'm still responsive to people. So yeah, if you have any questions, reach out and follow along if you just want to see pictures every fall of just animals hitting the ground. But I'm not going to throw fluff at you or anything like that. So yeah, just reach out and we can chat.